Like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get new video updates.
Opinion: would a Justice Jackson be clearly heard on the male-dominated court? Ann Sieghart is a journalist, broadcaster and visiting professor at King's College London. She is the author of The Authority Gap: Why Women Are Still Taken Less Seriously Than Men, and What We Can Do About It. "Let me finish my point," cried Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor when an advocate, Bert W. Rein, interrupted her for the umpteenth time against the court's rules. "I am speaking," protested Kamala D. Harris when Mike Pence talked over her during a vice presidential debate. However authoritative a woman is, she is still disproportionately likely to be interrupted by a man, even one more junior than she. So how will Ketanji Brown Jackson fare if her nomination is confirmed? How much voice will she have? Although women have made up at most only a third of sitting Supreme Court justices, they suffer two-thirds of all interruptions, according to a 2017 Northwestern University study that scrutinized databases from the 1990, 2002 and 2015 terms, when there were 1, 2 and 3 female justices. That means they were 4 times more likely to be interrupted than their male colleagues, 96% of the time by men. Sotomayor, the only woman of color, was interrupted more than her white female colleagues. And the liberal female justices were interrupted more than the conservative one. Not great news for the possible Justice Jackson. Interruptions are just one manifestation of the authority gap. We still assume that a man knows what he's talking about until he proves otherwise, while for women it's all too often the other way around. The authority gap widens the further we are from the white, male, middle-class default. So women in general are twice as likely as men to say that they have to provide more evidence of their competence, women of color a lot more so than white women. Women of color are also more than twice as likely as white women to say that people are surprised at their abilities. Last month, Fox News host Tucker Carlson demanded to see the fiercely intelligent Jackson's LSAT score. In 2009, Karl Rove said of Sotomayor, "I'm not really certain how intellectually strong she would be," and commentator Fred Barnes called her not the smartest. Did any of these men ask to see Neil M. Gorsuch's LSAT score or question his intelligence? Despite all the objective evidence to the contrary, we still tend to assume that men are cleverer than women. A British study published in 2002 asked parents to estimate their children's IQs. They put their sons, on average, at 115 and their daughters at only 107, even though girls develop faster than boys, have a wider vocabulary, and do much better at school and college. The same researchers asked adults to estimate their own IQs. Men, on average, put theirs at 110 and women 105. Yet the IQ distribution is identical between the genders, except at the very far ends of the bell curve. Partly because of this, entirely incorrect, assumption of male intellectual superiority, we often underestimate women, patronize them, interrupt and talk over them, challenge their expertise, and resist their authority. And, as in the Supreme Court, it happens even to the most powerful of women. I interviewed about 40 such women for my book, The Authority Gap: Former presidents and prime ministers, Supreme Court justices, chief executives, bishops, generals, movie directors, and they all had stories to tell of how much harder it was to gain the respect that would automatically be accorded to men. Mary McAleese told me how, when she was President of Ireland, she led a delegation to the Vatican to meet Pope John Paul II. When the Pope arrived in the audience room, he walked straight past McAleese, stuck out his hand to her husband instead, and asked, "Would you not prefer to be President of Ireland rather than married to the President of Ireland?" Michelle Bachelet, twice President of Chile, told me that she could never sum up a political meeting by saying, "Okay, we're going to do A, B and C," without a more junior male colleague taking the floor afterward to give the impression that he was the one taking the decisions. Maybe, as more women are appointed to top jobs, the authority gap will start to narrow. I hope so, but our everyday interactions don't seem to improve much while women remain a minority. Indeed, the Supreme Court study found that the more female justices there were, the more they were interrupted. A 2014 study found that if women make up a minority of a group, they are half as likely as men to win approval for their views and much more likely to be interrupted. Ruth Bader Ginsburg once said that there would be enough women on the Supreme Court when there were 9, to mirror the 9 male justices that have been there for most of the court's life. That might be a little extreme, but it